Hey, beautiful people, welcome back to another episode of the In Between Podcast. My name is Ayek, and I host this show. I host this podcast. I host this conversation. If you're new to the podcast, well, as I've said now, I've just said that my name is Ayek, and I started this podcast now 3 years ago, doing a lot of interesting things, but decided to zero in on God. The same time that I was zeroing on God in my personal life is the same time I started zeroing on God on the podcast. So you don't have to believe in God to listen to this podcast or to relate to the conversations that we have. But we have three tenets here on the podcast: healing, peace, freedom, and not in that particular order. If it comes all at once, like we're with it. However it comes, like let it just come. So if you really want to interact with this, please feel free to go over to my YouTube and you will see me looking like a school teacher. Like I say this about myself all the time. I look like a fifth grade teacher, but this particular look that I have on, if a parent doesn't mistakenly ask me what their grade is right now, I would be really surprised. Like from the lipstick to the glasses, this sweater, the earrings, everything. But I'm the fun fifth grade teacher, like the English and history teacher, because the U.S. education system make teachers combine subjects because high turnover rate, little funding. Shout out U.S. education system. Okay. We're spilling tea already. We just got here and we're already spilling tea. How are you? How has the week been so far? If any of you guys are fasting, how is the fasting going? I had some very interesting very interesting thoughts on fasting, or let me not say thoughts. I had revelations on fasting that were very liberating to me. I just had an idea of fasting. Like, first of all, I thought you had to be like, I'm fasting. Like even literally Jesus said, like, nobody needs to know that you're fasting. But I thought in my mind that fasting made me pious, or like made me I don't know how to explain it. It just made me feel religious. Like, I'm really doing this Jesus thing, like for real. This thing is real. No, be like, it's not a joke. I'm not playing here. And it was just that. It didn't really go further. I'd done fasting, like, oh, fast for marriage, fast for breakthrough, which breakthrough and that breakthrough. But like, even during the fast, I wasn't taking it seriously. Like the first 20 days of the 21 days, I'm thinking about food and how quickly I can break my fast and stuff like that. So fasting has been interesting, but I just had some revelations recently about fasting. That have I wouldn't say made fasting easier, but it's changed my perspective on fasting and my desire to fast and why I fast and what the intentions are. I'm still unfolding the why, because people are like, you're not supposed to fast to get things from God. Okay. Hey, like, relax. Okay, fine. But like, I'm still trying to unfold that. But the practice of fasting itself, a lot of things have changed in my mind thanks to God and Him and the Lord revealing things to me. So today we're going to talk about something. We always talk about something spicy on this podcast. If you're new, I've said before, there's certain episodes, certain conversations that we're going to have that you just want to send it to your friend, because you're going to want to physically fight after listening. But I feel more and more what really needs to happen is go on Amazon, order handcuffs, or like those unbreakable rope things that people put around boxes. Tie your hand to a chair, make yourself immobile, and force yourself to listen to this. Like, force yourself to listen to this, because we're not joking about this healing thing specifically. Like, when I say it's non-negotiable, we're actually not joking. But how do we heal if we don't address what's been going on? I want to talk about why I was mad at God, and occasionally find myself being mad at God right now, and talk about the journey and the experience, and how I think a lot of the times our experiences with anger at God and frustration with God are basically the same or similar. My biggest reason for being angry at God has been disappointment. Like, I have this idea of how I want my life to be, and how this was supposed to happen, and how that was supposed to happen, and it going completely opposite. or hearing this word or hearing this thing. I'm like, oh, yes, 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 this is for me. Like, this is what is going to happen. And then it doesn't. Now add disappointment with a little bit of embarrassment, like being embarrassed, humiliation surrounding the disappointment. Because one thing about me, hey, which, the Lord really had to check me on, like I talk a lot. Make no mistake, if you see me in person, you may be like, this lady, she's Iron Lady vibe. She's not much of a talker. I talk a lot. We've been introduced through the podcast or through YouTube so that you know that I talk a lot. And I had a sort of mismanagement of ways that I would provide information or give information to people about things in my life. So instead of asking God, like, hey, Lord, what do you think? Is this just my idea or is this what you really want? I'd be so quick to tell people and make these definitive decisions and definitive ideas, telling people. And then when it didn't work out, I'd be so embarrassed, like, dang. And then also like, Lord, I thought you told me this. Like, what's tea? What's going on? I can 100% tell you it's always been surrounding men and maybe one time with a job. It's always been about men. And one time it was being a part of an organization. We'll talk about that whole thing. I have a story time on that, but becoming a member of an organization and all of these things. But yeah. So that's on a lighter note, but I think one of the biggest disappointments that I sometimes I'm in the healing process and still ongoing the healing process, but one of the biggest instances of disappointment that I really had to tell God one time in 2020, like, I do not forgive you. I H-word you, like just all kinds of stuff, was the loss of my brother. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on the situation or what happened, but let me start off with this. If you are an older sister to a brother, especially, I wouldn't even just say in like African culture, depending on the age gap, your brother is your baby. My brother was my firstborn. Like, don't get me wrong, my sister was close to my brother, but my brother and I were very, very close. He was my child. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that and knew that he was my child. And a lot of things and struggles that he went to, even when I was too young to understand them, I felt what he was going through. So I unfortunately saw him go through a lot of challenges. Not that he was an unhealthy child or anything or whatever, but he had challenges, and being there firsthand, seeing it and experience it, like, felt painful, felt like I had to protect him, felt like I had to save him. So I'm a junior in undergrad, and he had gotten sick before. He had gotten sick previously, and I was there, and we were like panicking. We were so scared. We thought, it was something, like we thought he was going to die. And I just remember being so grateful, like, Lord, thank you, Lord, that this boy did not die. Like, thank you that my baby is still here. That whole thing. And then a few years later, he goes on a trip. I get a call in the morning, and my dad tells me, oh, your brother's in a coma. He's not feeling like he's sick or whatever. So just come home. Long story short, my dad said that because, he could not come to terms with saying that, his son had passed away, and finding out that my brother passed away. Now that was the first part. But the disappointment came when I had faith throughout that entire day. When we found out that he had passed away, I was literally preaching to people that no, like, he's going to come back to life, even though my faith was just nowhere up there, and thinking that I heard God say something that I misinterpreted. So, dealing with the shock of my brother passing away, dealing with the shock of death. I'd never seen death up close before, like never expected it to be my baby. And by my baby, I mean my brother, like not the children that I would give birth to, but like never thought it would be my brother. And then the disappointment of, this is the one time I had faith. This is the one time I like put myself out there and believe that you can do it. And you tell me this thing and then it doesn't happen how I thought it would happen. I was mad. And I didn't want to be honest with God about it because I was told that, like, how will you be telling God, what is that? Even though one of my friends had advised me, he's like, talk to God. Like, tell God how you feel genuinely from your heart. Like, that's the only way you guys are going to make progress, and he's going to be able to heal you. And I'm like, Okay, hold on. I know what you're saying. And shout out to my friend. He's Puerto Rican. And I'm sure Puerto Ricans have similar cultures, but he's, like westernized and stuff a bit. Or that's how I saw him. I'm like, oh, this guy, he hangs out around too many he hangs around too many white people. That's why he's saying all this stuff. Like, no, you can't just, what's that you saying that will say how I really feel to God? Like, no. It harbored a lot of bitterness. And that was, I can't say that I trusted God completely, but definitely after that instance, I'm like, I'm just praying to you because just in case you kill someone else in my family, because I was convinced that the Lord killed my brother. Just in case. Let me just pray just in case you get mad. So our entire relationship was me constantly living in fear that people were going to die and that God was responsible for it. I think I've said this on a previous episode. So one day in 2020, I'm coming back and, tons of other disappointments. Let me not say tons, maybe like 2 or 3. 2 disappointments surrounding men or whatever had taken place. I'm in my room and the Lord is like, you're mad at me. I'm like, what'd you say, sir? You're mad at me. But these were the words he used. You have not forgiven me. And I'm like, how can you not forgive God? Like, what do you mean you can't? I haven't forgiven you. How can you practice unforgiveness against God? But then I was like, you know what? Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about this and this. And this. And by the way, we go through that whole journey. And I'm not going to say that it was an overnight thing where I was able to reconcile with God. And what I mean by reconcile, because Jesus Christ has reconciled us with God. What I mean is like make peace with him and just like at the very least accept what happened. One of the painful things surrounding my brother's passing was people were trying to encourage me like, oh, God knew what was ahead. And that's why he allowed your brother to go when he did. For me, in my mind, even now, I can't reconcile how a 17-year-old boy will die on a trip. And especially the way that my brother passed away. My mind, I'm not understanding what the Lord was protecting him from. I'm open to understanding it a little bit more now, and I accept that God had his reasons for why it had to happen, because I see COVID and all of these things. I'm like, who knows what could have happened? But in my mind, I'm like, why kids gotta die? Maybe shouldn't die. Please. Well, he wasn't a baby, he was 17. So I say all this to preface what I want to talk about today, because I understand what it means to be disappointed by God, or feel disappointed by God, or be disappointed. Because a lot of times we have our ideas of what we want. We have expectations, or even simple things like, I thought my brother was going to outlive me. A 17-year-old boy, I thought he was going to outlive me. He'd be, taking me to senior citizen. Well, he would have been close to my age, but you know what I mean. We'd be going to senior citizen community care together, whatever. Playing softball with the other senior citizens or whatever. I understand what disappointment feels like. I understand why you would feel disappointed. And it can be what some people may think as, oh, that's stupid. Are you mad at God because of this? Like, I am. And what about it? There's nothing too big or too small in terms of the reason why people should feel disappointed. I know a lot of people have had experiences where, oh, I thought this person was the one, and then they're not. Or I thought this was a job, and then they did a mass layoff, or they laid off everyone. They laid me off and not anyone else. I get the the issue. But I want to comfort you with a few things. First and foremost, this is probably the most annoying part of what I'm going to say. God's ways are not our ways. For example, there may have been that guy in your life that you're like, oh, he's the one. Despite the red flags, or even if there were no red flags. Oh, he's the one. Everyone says it. They say we look good together, all of this stuff. And then it doesn't happen, and you're just like, God knows why. Who knows who he is behind closed doors? Who knows what would happen in 6 years? Who knew if he even had genuine intentions for you? I personally do not believe in the whole thing of, oh, maybe the Lord is just showing you what's possible so he can bring the other thing. That stuff like God is buying time, Just remove that from your thought process. Oh, the Lord just wanted to show you what was possible. That's why he brought this person into your life. But then they had to, but they played their role and they had to go. No, 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 no. Because if you think about it, it does not make sense. Why would God tease you? Do you understand? Why would God tease you? It doesn't even make sense for God to tease you. On what grounds? Oh, let me hang this carrot over your head. Then, would that not fit the narrative or the assumption that people have that God is wicked? Or even sometimes we have? Because there was a time I thought God is wicked. He's mean. He's a mean God. So just remove that from your thought process. God's ways are his ways. Sometimes he reveals to us the why or the thought process. Sometimes he doesn't, and he doesn't have to. Number 2, it can be hard circling back after a disappointment to people. Oh, I had this big deal, not me, but I had this big contract and then this and this happened. But you have to liberate yourself from that shame, because it causes isolation. Oh, I was working at this big law firm and then they fired me in 3 days. So I can't tell my family. So I haven't spoken to them or seen them in 6 months because I don't know what I will say. What will people say? There has to be liberation from that. That's another reason. That's another factor that makes certain types of disappointments so debilitating, because we're like, oh my gosh, what will people say? I think that was a big thing for me in certain disappointments, certain disappointments that I faced. I think that was a big thing. What would people say? So we have to understand that liberation of concerning ourselves with what people will say, it no concern you. Fear of man, validation, all of those things. There's a fear of starting over. Where will I start from? I've been doing this for 5 years. Where am I going to start from? I don't have time. I met him when I was 25. Now I'm 35. Where do I start from? But it's, what other choice do you have? You have to start. Kuku get choice. You got to start. You have to start. The sooner, the better. I understand how you feel, and why it would also make you mad at God, because you start having questions like, why would you even allow this? For me, I find myself even in slight inconveniences being like, Lord, you really down for me? I'm not saying I don't believe, but you really down to ride? Because this is an inconvenience. Sometimes the inconveniences are an attack, right? Sometimes the things that go wrong are an attack. But at the end of the day, we have to get to the bottom of what it is. Lord, is this an attack? Is this a part of the process? What is this? And when you've come to the realization that it's not an attack, even if it is an attack, there's nothing that God cannot deliver you from, right? We can go to God and say, Lord, deliver me, save me, protect me, all of those things, right? But when you're when it's not an attack and you know that it's just a part of the process, it's a part of the unfolding, like I like to say, what do I do in the in-between? Give me signs. And you see, at this point, I will list out my demands. I always preface, Lord, I have 7 things that I would like to request. I'm gonna list them out. If this is a part of your process, fine. Let it be a part of your process. But this is this and this. I need this, 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 and this in order to get through this. I think that's one thing that will strengthen us and keep us going. A few Bible verses that have really been sitting with me. I hope you guys liked last week's. Did something a little different. Just some Bible verses, because I know, child, anxiety, we rebuke you in Jesus' name. But sometimes you just need some words to hold you over. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. But one verse that's coming to my mind right now, and I want to get the right translation. Not the right translation, but the translation that really hit home for me. It was Psalm 23:3. He gives me new strength. He guides me in the right paths as he promised. So it's that last part, as he promised. I'm going to compare it to another translation that says, he renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. So that means the Lord bringing honor to his name and keeping his promise is one and the same. It's as he promised, keeping his word brings honor to his name by keeping his word. So I want to encourage you with this. If you are experiencing any level of disappointment, I don't know the details, I don't know the why, My suggestions, my honest suggestions, feel the emotions, feel how you feel. Do not sugarcoat them. Let's not use church English or religious words to sugarcoat pain and frustration and offense and anger, and grief. No, 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 no. We're not going to do that. Immediately, no. That's not what we do. Go to God with it. Listen, I'm offended. How can you, what kind of things, Lord, what is this? Be honest with God. Like, we have to spill tea with God. This is offensive. This is sad. I feel disappointed. I feel like you failed me. All of those things. Say those things and sit with it. Find out why. Find out who, as many details as you can possibly gain or you feel like the Lord is willing to reveal to you. And give yourself time. Give yourself time to heal from the disappointment. If you're feeling any level of disappointment, give yourself time to heal. I hope that helps, guys. I know I'm keeping it short and sweet for now, but we're going back to our longer episodes once we get the technical difficulties sorted out. But if you're not following me yet on the gram, follow me at _the in-between podcast, at _ the in-between podcast. If you have any thoughts, comments, ideas, etc., hit me up. Send me a message or an email actually at podcast.inbtwn@gmail.com. That is podcast.inbtwn@gmail.com. Let's talk. I will speak to you guys next week. Take care. Bye for now.